everyone, and thank you for joining this session. My name is Beverly. I am from the Digital Leaders team. You are in the session Revolutionizing Public Service, Overcoming Hurdles to a Digital Future by Ten10. Just before we get started, a few housekeeping tips. In this session, your camera and microphone are automatically turned off, so you don't have to worry about that. Throughout the session, you can use the chat, which you can find at the lower part of your screen. We encourage that you use that to participate in the conversation while Ash is doing his presentation. He will also be answering your questions after his presentation. You can either put your question in the chat box or use the Q&A tab, which again, you will find at the bottom of your screen. So let's get started, Ash. So Ten10 is a leading technology consultancy and Recruit, Train, Deploy, RTD, academy provider, founded in 2004. Their consultancy delivers expert quality engineering, automation, and service testing solutions, helping organizations to deliver quality software faster, more effectively, and more frequently. Ten10 Academy provides high-caliber, diverse technology talent by selecting and developing the best entry-level talent before deploying them to organizations to plug a range of skill gaps, including software development, software testing, business analysis, and PMO. Ash has been responsible for the Ten10 Tech Academy since its inception in 2013. Ash is passionate about giving people the opportunities to start and develop a career in technology, irrespective of their background. Ash, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our attendees and to proceed with your presentation.
Super. Thank you very much, Bev. Thank you for attending and welcome to this talk, everyone. As Bev mentioned, my name is Ash Gawthorp and I'm the Chief Academy Officer and one of the co-founders of Ten10. Ten10 is an established tech consultancy. I have experience of delivering high quality tech and digital transformation services to businesses across the UK. But today I want to talk to you specifically about challenges that face the public sector. The opportunities that are available in the public sector are limitless, and getting digital transformation right can radically help the lives of the public at large in everything, really, from healthcare to police services, transport, local government. In fact, every facet of people's lives can be improved. However, there are substantial challenges that stand in your way. So that's why we want to help identify and overcome them, revolutionizing how you approach digital transformation in the process. In this talk, I'll discuss what the public sector actually expects from digital transformation. We'll look at what lessons you can learn from the private sector to change how you approach public sector services, but also what major hurdles stand in the way of achieving digital transformation. And finally, how can you overcome each hurdle and achieve the digital future that will improve the lives of the public? As Bev mentioned at the end of the talk, I'll also be hosting a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box or the Q&A tab, and I'll go through them at the end. So let's start with the mandate that you all face, making the 2022 to 2025 roadmap for digital and data a success. So there's 6 distinct missions. Number 1, transform public services that achieve the right outcomes. 2, one login for government. 3, better data to power decision-making. 4, efficient, secure and sustainable tech. 5, digital skills at scale. 6, a system that unlocks digital transformation. All these things make up this roadmap and are listed on the screen there. But make no mistake, this roadmap shouldn't be seen as a mission to achieve a certain level of digital transformation by 2025. You shouldn't be bringing things up to code or rolling out new services just in this 3-year window. This roadmap should be seen in the same light as this talk, the opportunity to change how you approach digital transformation so it becomes an ever-present, ever-improving part of the public sector, which will enable you to operate much more efficiently and deliver tax savings to the public. And being honest with you, you have your mandate, you know what good and bad look like, and you have the top level approaches to use. So what's the critical challenge to your mandate that connects all of these missions together? In my mind, it's talent. It's making sure that you have the right people to deliver the digital transformation initiatives that are expected of you, essentially. So digital transformation, it's a nice term to use. We all know what it means because we work in it in digital every day. But when you say digital transformation to the average person in the street, in likelihood they won't know. It's too nebulous, too ethereal a concept to grasp, essentially. What is transforming? What's it transforming into? I could talk you through how digital transformation helps increase innovation and agility in your organization, but fundamentally, that isn't something that your end users, the entire UK public, will care about. What the average person does understand, though, is how the public sector should be supporting them. So framing digital transformation as the improvement and services that they're familiar with should be your priority, and how you can provide services that they need and access them in a much easier, more efficient manner. To achieve digital transformation in a way that's recognized and appreciated by the public, you need to prioritize aspects of your service, such as access, for example. If you think of all the different portals, logins, options, and choices a user has to make to access their information. But public access to your services needs to be simpler, quicker, and more reliable. We live in 2023, and people are still unable to reach their council offices often when they want to, often staying on the phone for a long time trying to get through to someone. And with an aging population, not everyone is a digital citizen. So you need to provide services that are easier for these people to access as well, perhaps from access points or systems that are different from the ones that people have today. So in a similar vein, security is a priority for the public. So news reports of data breaches and online scams keep data security at the front of people's minds. You only need to look at the 1.3 billion pounds that was stolen in 2021, as the UK, like many countries, was emerging from national lockdowns. Authorized push payment fraud, APP, rose sharply as people received emails claiming to offer council tax reductions, for example, when everyone was concerned just how far their savings would support them through lockdown. So anything that recognizes and prioritizes the protection of the public data is a major win. Improved efficiency is also a win-win. It's a win internally, as your team and organizations as a whole get better at what they do. And that means helping more people, improving your reputation in the eyes of the public. Improvements in tech have always had one thing at the heart of them, essentially doing things faster and more reliably. And when tech is applied to services already under massive time pressures, if we take doctors and nurses in the healthcare system, for example, you provide extremely visible evidence of effective digital transformation. Okay. So whilst there's been an improvement in many areas of services provided using digital technology, and I'm thinking here about things like submitting tax returns, the DVLA, and the way in which you can pay for your road tax and check your MOT online, sometimes even these still fall down where something is not following the expected route or kind of outside the happy path that people are expecting. Perhaps, for example, if you take the DVLA, for example, road tax submission and everything around that is very straightforward. But if you want to do something a little unusual, like maybe change the class of a vehicle, that's still far more complicated and requires a lot of sort of manual steps outside of the process. Perhaps the best lesson you can learn here is from the private sector, and that the inherent competitiveness of the private sector companies mean that they are more in tune and have to be with changing to meet their users' needs, because if they don't change, then they don't become easier to access, and if they aren't secure, and if they don't keep pace with the technology that's available to them, then their customers will simply go to a provider who does. So here on the screen, we've got just a few examples of companies that have transformed in various sort of customer-centric ways. So if we take Aldi there, for example, just a few years ago, Aldi didn't offer a click and collect service, but they had to do that once the COVID-19 pandemic hit us in March 2020. Overnight, they went from being a sort of bricks and mortar retailer to essentially that being shut, and they had to pivot and had to quickly establish the sort of click and collect service as a necessity to stay profitable during that lockdown. But they're now continuing to roll it out as a service across more and more of its stores. Marks and Spencer's, M&S there, they have a commitment to digital transformation, and they say, it's up to us to create a seamless customer experience, improve personalization, embed digital across our stores and in our shopping missions. It's part of the company's never the same again strategy, that that, again, they learned a valuable lesson in staying digitally available throughout the pandemic. AO there, that's been a versatile brand for growing to meet customer demand, broadening its delivery and order tracking capabilities, including a chatbot centered around order management and customer queries. And then on the end, we have Starling Bank and Monzo, two of the challenger banks. Again, I've seen a massive growth in popularity, likely because their services are led by a digital first, they have no branches sort of approach. And they're able to offer helpful services like virtual cards, for example. So, let's say you're on holiday and your wallet gets stolen, rather than waiting for a new card, within the hour, you're able to have a new card there on your phone. So you're able to use your smartphone to pay for things. That's a real sort of value add to customers. And the fact that they've even streamlined the way in which a lot of people, you're able to pay people, for example. So instead of having to know their exact name and get that right, and the exact sort code and the exact account number and the risk of that going the wrong place, transferring money between accounts now is as simple as, if you have somebody in your contacts list in your phone, you can just click on that person and transfer money to them. So of course, we talk about private sector brands utilizing digital transformation. We can't really not mention Amazon. So the company has a wide range of data applications. Now, Amazon's known as much more than a delivery company, but it still remains at the forefront of that delivery space, thanks mainly to market-leading order tracking, GPS and messaging technology. I mean, one example here is, if I order something, and I work from home regularly, I know, for example, when the driver is 5 stops away, I can actually see on the Amazon app where the driver is. And so that allows me to work out exactly, when I need to be available for them to deliver the package to me, as opposed to just saying, well, we'll probably arrive tomorrow. That's a big game changer. So in each of these examples, digital transformation has been made to improve the customer experience, and also to not just keep up with, but actually stay ahead of the competition, and often actually be the organization blazing that trail. And this edge can sometimes be missing from the public sector and the services provided. When all said and done, often there is only one option for the public, which does drive down competition. Does this mean you shouldn't do it, or you shouldn't, or that you should rest on your laurels? No, absolutely not. As consumerism drives different expectations of what good service looks like, and Gen Z, the digital natives of our generation, move into positions that they will not only drive change, but expect a level of digitalization that far outweighs the legacy and outdated practices that many services today still have. They expect all of their apps to behave in the similar way to the very, very best sort of digital-led sort of apps on their smartphones and on their devices. So much better to start now and understand this journey and the challenges ahead. I think you need to be aware of the technology available to you, and also the possible applicants that can help you. So this can feel overwhelming. There may be a variety of issues in your organization that you want to deal with, often all at the same time. But remember what I said around what the public expects from digital transformation, those ideas of access, security, and speed. What technology can you apply to your business to improve these fields? Perhaps one of the largest fields to explore is automation, particularly RPA, or robotic process automation. So this is designed to automate heavily manual and repetitive processes with programmed bots that are given a set of rules, so they can help read and process data much faster than humans and can do it more reliably, meaning your staff can spend more time thinking strategically and coming up with creative solutions to problems, rather than completing the same tasks repeatedly. You don't need to risk losing control of these services either, as attended RPA means the users can, the issues that can't easily be fixed by that bot are elevated up to a human supervisor, or if there's a level of sign-off where it requires that human intervention, then that's fine as well. One other attractive area here is that you can actually automate the existing services, rather than having to go away and completely re-architect and redesign the existing services. So here we've listed a few processes that your organization may benefit from automating, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg. Many organizations identify 2 or 3 critical processes that would yield the biggest impact through implementing automation, then making sure that the pilot schemes succeed, start small, win over hearts and minds, and then build it out that way and roll the technology out as far as it needs to be, really. Of course, that the data and its security are paramount to the public sector, and the knock-on effect of mismanaged data can be catastrophic. As I'm just going to come up just show a few examples here. So, in healthcare, inaccurate patient records can directly lead to misdiagnosed patients and incorrect treatment plans, directly harming the public's health. Transport delays and cancellations can stem from misreported passenger data. In education and housing, funds can be misallocated and leave families and individuals without the resources they need. And finally, on this slide, environmental organizations rely on data to carry out risk assessments and to stop environmental threats before they harm citizens. And without proper management, an organization staff may not have access to the information they need to make informed decisions. Managing vast amounts of data can be time consuming and difficult. So consider new digital processes that can streamline and simplify your firm's data processing. For example, automated systems can quickly help organize, backup, and sort through large amounts of data in a fraction of the time it would take manually. You may benefit from tools which makes, such as online cloud document management systems, which makes documents accessible from anywhere, but still leveraging that cloud provider's very robust security mechanism. Testing of data is incredibly important as well, as it allows the public sector to ensure their data is accurate, secure, and compliant with any applicable regulations or regulatory requirements that exist. By conducting data testing regularly, you can check for errors or inconsistencies that may lead to, or otherwise would lead to, costly mistakes further down the road, but also identify potential security risks which need to be addressed to protect confidential user information as well. Okay, so what's stopping everyone from achieving this digital transformation? What hurdles are in your way? The first one, as we talked about, the idea that one of the largest challenges is talent. The first one is the time it takes to recruit the talent that you need. So here on this diagram, we've got a standard-ish sort of recruitment cycle. So let's say you need to hire a software engineer. So you promote the vacancy online and you advertise through ads. The likelihood is you'll get hundreds of applicants, but in actual fact, only a few of them are really actually viable. So therefore, your time's wasted reviewing CVs from people who you simply know aren't the right fit. When you've found promising candidates, more time's taken with any psychometric testing you do and multiple rounds of interviews. After you've made your selection, you need to wait for any security clearance that's required. Obviously, if that doesn't come through, then you're back to square one again. For the person to work their notice period, so that can be anything from 4 weeks to 3 months, 6 months, whatever that looks like. So that's quite a long process, and that's assuming it all works. If at any point something goes awry there, or throughout that process that candidate takes another role, you're right back to square one again. And then the next time you have that vacancy to fill, you've got to do it all over again as well. But for decades, really, this has been the model of recruitment within the public sector. Even if processes have moved online, this has only really changed the medium through which recruitment's carried out. Job application portals accept digital CVs, for example. Interviews can be moved to video calls. But nothing's actually really been done to change the process fundamentally. So to this, really, the point is, take a step back, disengage from this, stop doing what so it doesn't work or is very inefficient. There are much quicker and simpler alternative models. One example is the recruit, train, deploy, or RTD model, which is now being adopted under the PSR Public Sector Resourcing Framework. So in RTD, organizations recruit talented individuals and train them so they have the technical knowledge they need to be deployed in the workplace. You then tell the provider what kind of talent you're looking for, what the role requirements are, and they'll provide you with viable candidates immediately, turning that time around in hours or days. So no more sifting through a stack of CVs. Instead, what you get are hand-picked candidates who are good cultural matches for your organization. So you then choose when to interview them. And then after you've made your choice, that person can be deployed into your organization in days, not weeks or months, using the traditional model. Another hurdle in the way, in fact, unfortunately, is that the skills that are in demand in the public sector are also mirrored in the private sector. And it's difficult enough to find talent with the training and experience that you require, but you're also competing against a sector that can routinely offer higher salaries than you might be able to match. And also you have the challenge that sometimes individuals may take a role with you with the intention from the start of really just gaining some experience and then kind of jumping ship, using it as sort of a stepping stone, if you like, and then going to a private sector organization, at which point you're back to what we saw on the previous slide of having to go right back to the beginning again. So in that traditional linear pathway of recruitment that we covered earlier, you only have an hour to maybe two, that sort of time to be able to interview a candidate and ascertain, firstly, if they can do the job, but also if they'll be the right fit for your organization. But in reality, that's only really one facet or one variable of what you're looking for to be able to match somebody to the role. And really, you need to conduct what we call a 3D needs assessment on the candidate and look for people who are drawn to the positive aspects of the public sector, the benefits that you're able to offer in terms of that long-lasting environment. You're not at the mercy of market forces in the same way. A structured career path with very clear salary bands and progression requirements between them. And also, last but by no means least, a sense of purpose, career fulfillment with doing work for the public good. So when working with a talent provider, they need to be able to provide individuals who will buy into this environment from day one. So they do want to engage with the organization, they want to progress, and crucially, they want to stay there for a long time. So the investment that you make in there by training them and training them on your systems actually bears fruit. So here you can see that sort of 3D needs assessment that we use in the Ten10 Academy. So first point, their skills. Yes, we assess individuals for their skills, but also the other two boxes there are often overlooked in terms of what we call the lifestyle fit and also the cultural fit. So these are people that we've trained, we've spoken with, we've supported, we've lived with over sort of 3 or 4 months every single day of their initial training. So as a result of that, we really get to know people and really get to know their personalities. So we know who will fit in an organization, not just for a project, but also for that long-term career. But as well as that, one other key consideration is, aside from matching the personality of the individual to the culture of the organization, it's also about thinking about the lifestyle fit, as we just describe it there, which is really looking at the cadence of the work. How often will they be? Is the projects run for years? Do projects run for months? Or at the other end of the scale, is somebody going to be immersed in something new every 2, 3, 4 weeks and find themselves at the bottom of a learning curve? Some people really thrive in that environment and really embrace it. For other people, they would hate it. And so it's really about matching that to what the individual's looking for. The location, somebody want to be in a city, somebody want to be in a town, somebody want to be in a country. Is the work delivered from a single location? Or is there a requirement to travel between different locations, or maybe even actually move to external sites on a sort of daily basis, stay overnight in hotels. Again, some people really welcome that. Some people absolutely hate it. So it's about matching the role with the individual. And what we find is that when we do this, this gives us the greatest chance of success of the person staying there for a very, very long time. The third major hurdle in your way is that some elements of digital transformation have knock-on effects with the surrounding workforce. It's a common fear in the automation space, for example, that people will be automated out of their jobs, whereas in reality, automation should be used to make these roles easier, to free up more time, to allow people to do the valuable, creative, problem-solving decision-making. Ultimately, people are very, very useful and also valuable resources. Just as you're lacking to find the talent to achieve digital transformations initiatives, what actually is happening is that you also have, you're struggling to find them externally perhaps, but you also have people in your business and in the organization who have not only the intimate knowledge of the workflows and your processes, and in the actual fact, in reality, probably nobody else is better suited to devise new solutions to problems in the public sector than the people who've spent years and years working with the current ones and also aware of all the nuances and workarounds in order to make these things work in practice. But also these individuals, if they've been with you for years, they also are the right cultural fit by the very virtue of the fact that they've been with you for that length of time. So at that point then, what they're missing really is the skills side, is the ability to actually be able to do the role. So in this case, you really need to take your existing workforce and identify the people who show a spark, a desire, a passion to want to sort of get into this work, but also a technical aptitude, but without them necessarily having any technical experience. You know, we use a phrase, talent is everywhere, opportunity is not, and that's just so true. And often that talent exists in places that people aren't really looking for it. So if you think about that 3D needs assessment again, your existing staff have the lifestyle and cultural fits sorted, essentially, otherwise they wouldn't be here. So it's really about what are your options to be able to find or identify in your organization the people that have the potential to be able to do this, and then invest in them to be able to develop the skills and support them in order to be able to fulfill these roles which you're struggling to hire people into. So yes, there may well be a gap between their internal public sector knowledge and being able to apply it in practice technologically, but this is absolutely perfectly possible to do. And in actual fact, this is what we do within our own RTD model. We bring people into the business without any prior experience. We select them based on their aptitude and their attitude and their desire to get into tech, and then we put them through training which does allow them to work in these technical roles. So that same process can actually be used to cross-train, identify, and then cross-train your own people into these roles as well. And out of this training, the way that we do it is that the initial part is all about exposing them to all the different aspects of tech and to everything across solution, application, system development. And we do this so that they're able to help them really identify what it is that they like doing, but also identify what it is that they are good at. And so at that point, you've then identified individuals, not just who have an aptitude for tech and who want to do it, but also out of the different roles of business analysis, a project manager, a software developer, a software tester, a DevOps engineer, the whole array of digital roles there. If they've been through training which has exposed them to a little bit of all of those things, then they're actually able to make an informed choice around where it is that they would be most useful and most valuable. So essentially by conducting this sort of thorough and collaborative training, that'll help you spot within your own workforce existing talent that you'll be able to grow and apply their skills best to fulfilling these roles on the systems and the processes that they already know inside out. So in practice, the ideal solution is really to bring together the best of both worlds here, and not just follow one of these solutions. if you actually mix them together into a blended team, so essentially you've got the influx of new talent that is culturally matched to your workforce. They'll bring a diversity of thought. They will come from different backgrounds. They will have different experiences. And that sort of recombinative innovation that will come from that will help you stay both, competitive, thinking back to what we learned from the private sector, but also creative in your problem solving. But as well as that, you then couple those individuals with your own retained existing workers who already know about all your systems and processes, and you're able to balance these new ideas against the experiences of what they've seen and what they know works. So put simply, you have a blended team of people who know how to do things differently, but also people who know what needs to be done and the way to make these things better. Well, thank you very much. I think that comes to the end of my slides now. So really, we're sort of over to the Q&A part, Bev. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ash. So if you have any questions for Ash, please use the chat or the Q&A, and we can start answering them. Okay, so Ash, we have one question here about reskilling our workforce. Sorry, I just have to read it a bit. But reskilling our workforce, I think it means most of the time, most staff worry that going through this training will just equate to additional workload. What is your advice on how we can offer this and encourage them to take these opportunities?
Good question.
I hope I've read that question correctly.
So the way in which we run this, to get people from the stage of not, of not having any digital experience to the point where we can deploy them in roles as software devs, testers, DevOps engineers, BAs, etc. It's quite an intense process. And it actually has to, in practice, that would require taking them out of those roles and actually putting them through the training program, which is, it's virtual. So you don't need to physically travel somewhere to do it. But it is sort of 9 to 5:30, sort of 5 days a week across a sort of 12, 14-week period. It's that kind of level of training. So that's not something that, from our point of view anyway, which can be conducted kind of out of hours or in people's own time. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things that you can do in those areas to kind of upskill people, where you can do online courses, you can do them in your own time, you can get the accreditations and the certifications. But in our experience, that there is a chasm between doing some online learning and getting perhaps a certificate or an accreditation versus actually being immersed in training, which is, yes, it's knowledge based, but it's incredibly practical. It's actually about what the job really entails and what it is that the job really does and how teams work together, and that's the most important part.
Okay, thank you, Ash. So you talk about training people who are already in public sectors organizations, but how can you take someone who is, for example, an admin role and make them a developer? Isn't the knowledge gap between the role they have and what you're saying to do with them a bit too big?
No, absolutely not. That point that I made just a few minutes ago about the talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. That this is so true. There are so many talented people out there, but if you think that natural or default path of becoming let's say a developer in that case, requires somebody to go to school, to be engaged with a certain set of qualifications, normally around maths, physics, GCSEs. You then go and do the A-levels to that. You then go and do a computer science degree. That's a very narrow group of people that happen to find themselves along that path, that at the end of it walk out of there with a computer science degree. And the group of people that are able to do this is far wider. And so we don't mandate any qualifications or academic qualifications to join our training. Instead, we take the view that people need to pass our tests to be able to get in, but they are quite straightforward, easy to take. It takes about 45 minutes through an online portal. And they are then at that point, actually, we're testing them for their aptitude for tech without them having experience in it, and that's a very different thing. So we've put hundreds and hundreds of people through this program, and so we do have, you know, that proven track record of taking hundreds of people with no prior tech experience and turning them into BAs, developers, whatever, you know, whatever role somebody is doing now should not be any barrier to what they're able to achieve.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that.
I guess yes, it is possible, and yes, we do it, and there are hundreds of people that can testify to how that works.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, personally, I have, you know, I studied computer science, but then I shifted to a different, you know, a different role. It really is where your skills, like, I guess the interest as well. But yeah, I guess I've done the opposite in this way. So even if you use a model like recruit, train, deploy model, can't people just leave after 2 years anyway?
Yes, they can. Well, people can leave at any point. That's the nature of it. But that's back to that 3D needs assessment side again. It's if you take an individual who has the right skills, but they are not a good cultural fit, and what you're asking them to do from that lifestyle point of view does not fit in with what they're looking for, then they simply won't stay. You have to align all things. And so often, I think in traditional recruitment, we're focused on skills, and we'll maybe put somebody through a psychometric test or something similar. But it's about really knowing that the personality of that individual will work in the team. And when I talk about culture, it's not even so much about the company culture at a high level, because nobody works with a company at a high level, or certainly not people being brought in as junior technologists. It's about the team you're actually working with, and it's the individuals. And when you do have people that are matched there, coupled with people that want to go into public sector work for the right reasons, there are no guarantees in this world, but you know, that's why we have a north of sort of 90% success rate in terms of people that start these programs to actually moving to the client.
You also drew a comparison between the private sector and the public sector. And the private sector is naturally agile because companies don't have to work under government systems and policies. How flexible is the talent solution that you offer? And you also mentioned, go
on.
Yeah, so you also mentioned the 3D needs assessment, and you talk about having the right people, but surely it takes you a sizable amount of time to train people up.
So in terms of that agility part, first of all, it's almost like a pyramid in terms of how the training works. Essentially, you have that broad base, you then have specialist role specific training, but then you layer on top of that the tools, the platforms, the technologies, the languages that the actual client organization is using. So that's very important. So the people that are landing with you are actually aligned in that tech, but also these things aren't immutable either. You know, things change over time. I can't think of any software developer who started their career in one language and remains in that language for years or even decades. You know, it just doesn't happen. Things evolve, things change, and so there always has to be a constant sort of learning journey on that. And the way that we do that is our consulting team that at any point in time is working with, you know, more than 50, anywhere between 50 and 60 different clients across 120, 130 different projects. We get to see a lot of things that are out there in terms of those trends, in terms of which ways things are going, and our people are then able to also cross-train our people through that process as well. And I think on the agility point, you know, yes, everybody thinks that the private sector has been very agile. And I think if you look at organizations like the ones I put up on the screen there, particularly like Monzo and that kind of thing, yes, they are. But for every challenger bank, there are also retail banks there that have, you know, tech which is decades old, often in many cases. And certainly, whilst the front end client facing smartphone app part might be agile, the systems at the back end aren't. So there's still a lot of slow moving things, I think, within the private sector as well. I think that's also mirrored in the public sector. And then, sorry, that point around the 3D needs assessment, I missed that bit. Could you just repeat that bit again?
So yeah, the 3D needs assessment, you talk about having the right people, but yeah, surely it takes, you know, sizable amount of time to train people up.
So we put them through that initial training period, which is, sort of, well, anywhere from sort of 12 weeks to sort of 14, 15 weeks, depending on what's required. But that's really the start of that journey. And everybody we hire into tech, one of the things we look for is that recognition that it is a journey and it does require continuous learning, and that things have to develop over the time as well. So at that, that 14 weeks, you're not done by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, you've barely started. But what that does give you is the grounding, the understandings, and the ability to be effective when you actually start. And then, like so many things in life, it's then when you learn that process over time. But one other key aspect is that there has to be that support in place. There has to be mechanisms in place to help people as they train and as they develop over time. And often that can be where some programs fall down, because if you're relying solely on the team, the customer team, to help people, often the time when junior people in the team need the most help is often the time when the team's least able to give it. It's the time when the project deadline's looming and it's all hands to the pumps and everybody's trying to get things done and it's all a little bit fractious. So you have to have support mechanisms in place for outside of that actual team. So the partnering organization that's actually delivering these people is able to do that as well.
All right. Thank you, Ash. What did you mean by citizen accessing digital services easily and being able to offer services in new ways? How can digital transformation help people who aren't, digital citizens?
Who aren't? Sorry, did you say?
Who aren't digital citizens?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. So it's quite close to my heart, really. So I have elderly parents. You certainly can't describe them as digital citizens. They don't have smartphones. And so whilst on the one hand, yes, we are developing these digital services, there has to be a recognition that something else has to be in place as well for individuals like them. Otherwise they simply won't. And perhaps that just requires a new way of thinking. Perhaps there need to be entry points in places like, libraries, in post office, for example, those kind of places where people can actually, with assistance, can actually engage with these kind of techniques. Because I think just putting everything digitally and expecting everybody to be able to use it, I think you'll have 95% of people there, but the people outside of that will need extra support and different ways of working. And I think having something which is physically in a location where people are there to help and to assist them, I think will definitely aid that, because I think so much of it is actually fear on the part of people often engaging with these digital services. They're particularly, I think, of my elderly parents, they're terrified by the idea of pressing the wrong button or entering the wrong thing in a text field.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one more question before we end the session, Ash. How do you ensure that the training you deliver teaches people the technical knowledge and skills they require to enter the workplace? And also, I think you've kind of touched upon this already before. Does your training result in certification or accreditation? And if so, what are they?
It's a good question. So yes, sometimes is the quick but not very sort of not very fulfilling answer. What we find is that there are some areas in tech where there are industry standard accreditations that are given often by either governing bodies or trade bodies, or more commonly vendors, so platform vendors or software vendors and tools, so people like Salesforce.com, for example, or AWS or Azure, those kind of organizations. And where those are appropriate, we do encourage people to take those accreditations, but you have to be careful about the way in which you approach it. So one approach, if you let's take the AWS, some of the AWS certifications, for example, you can, in theory, in practice, you can actually just go buy a book, spend a couple of weeks cramming for the exam, take the exam, multiple choice, pass the exam. But that doesn't mean you can actually do the job which the exam indicates you can do. If you have somebody who's working with AWS who actually is a cloud engineer using those systems and services every day, chances are they can just take the exam and they'll pass it without any prep because they're using it all the time. But it doesn't work both ways. And so I'm sometimes wary of certifications and accreditations. I think they have their place and I think they can be useful in terms of filtering people. but they aren't necessarily a great indication that somebody can actually perform in that role. And some of them don't really have accreditation. So if you take a software developer, the way in which most of our software devs are actually, the way in which clients sort of get a level of comfort with them in terms of assessing them is to actually sit down with them and do a pair programming exercise. So the candidate actually demonstrates that they can program. They can actually.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's far more kind of practical. So I think accreditations and certifications have their place, and where they're appropriate, we encourage people to do them, but they're not the be all and end all. Actually being able to do the job is the most important part.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you so much, Ash. I think we've run out of time. So there's a link that I've just shared in the chat. That's an additional files that you can have a look at your own time about 1010 and what they do. Ash, I'll let you close the session. How can they contact you and know more about what you do?
Thanks very much, Bev. Yeah, I think we've still got that slide on the screen, haven't we? So just contact us at contact@ten10.com. Our website's there, www.ten10.com, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn, whatever sort of best, really. Yeah, lovely.
Thank you so much, Ash, and thank you everyone for joining this session.
Thanks very much.
Good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Take care. Bye.